Hey, welcome everybody. It's Eric Dreiman. Happy to have you back again for the February episode of the Hooks and Hoses podcast. I'm pretty excited. I tried to get this guy on last month. We couldn't get our schedules worked out, which happens. And I'm glad that Lieutenant Steve Robertson from Columbus Division of Fire was able to be my guest tonight. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, good to see you, Eric. Appreciate it. Appreciate the
Yeah,
opportunity.
no problem. Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not an engine guy, but I have a feeling I'll be a better engine guy after listening to everything that you're going to educate me on tonight. So, just a little bit about Steve before we get going. He's been in the fire service for 35 years, last 32 of which have been in Columbus, Ohio. He currently is a lieutenant on Engine 18 in the South Linden neighborhood in Columbus. Steve's been a classroom instructor at FDIC for several years, which is where I first met him, teaching engine company operations. Classroom instructor at FDIC for several years. Additionally, he's been a lead instructor for the FDIC HOT program, Stretching for Success in Midrise Mayhem. He's on the FSRI technical panel, which your house just burnt down in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I know a guy on that panel too. So, and then for the past 28 years, Steve's been a state certified fire safety instructor. He's also past member of the state of Ohio Fire Training Committee. So, Steve, what else you want to say about yourself, or you want to let the audience know before we get going?
I think that sums it up. I go to work every third day, or when I can get there.
Absolutely, I understand. Yeah, he's a busy man. All right, well, I like to just kind of give everybody a little bit of background on you. I just read your bio, so they have a general idea of you. But how did you get your start in the fire service? Did you start out? Is this a legacy thing? Are you second, third, fourth generation? Is it just you saw a flyer in the mail? What's it?
Second generation. My dad was a full-time firefighter down in Athens, Ohio. I grew up in southeastern Ohio, down the Ohio University area. So he was a full-time firefighter down there. Back then they worked 24 on, 24 off, no Kelly days, no nothing. That's just what they did.
Yeah.
So I pretty much grew up around the firehouse, and I was out doing my thing, and not making some good choices as a young man. And he said, "Hey, why don't you go by the firehouse?" So started hanging out at the volunteer firehouse out in Richland area fire department, back where I lived in southern Ohio, and went in my first fire at 16, and the rest was history, man. I got the bug after that, and that was that did it. And then he just said the one piece of advice he gave me that I've always thanked him for. And he said, if you're going to do this job, go somewhere you're going to make money. It's not down here in southern Ohio. So I started taking tests all over the place. I took Cleveland, Cincinnati, Toledo, Dayton, and then Columbus called. And that's where I ended up. So, when we start talking short staffed, I absolutely can talk short staffed. A lot of our engine companies in Columbus still run with 3 folks on them. So, that's it's a challenging thing, but I kind of pride ourselves when we teach out on the road and we lecture that, the majority of the fire service doesn't have 5 on an engine. So it doesn't do a lot of good to teach 5-person tactics on an engine company operations when everybody's running with 3, and which really comes down to 2 when you start making the push and you got a driver. So we've kind of prided ourselves, myself and the guys we teach with, that short staffed is what we go to, because if you got more people, it just makes it easier.
Absolutely, yeah. But there's a few departments that are lucky they can just keep throwing people at it, but until they put enough water on it. But most places aren't like that, as you and I know from our travels and exposures to different departments and things. So, so have you always been an engine guy? Is this something that
I actually, when I first got out of Columbus, out of the academy, I went to Truck One, Ladder One, and it was a great experience. 3 years there. I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it was an aspect of the job I did not know as a dedicated truck company. I had zero experience with it, zero exposure to it. So it was a great experience, but my heart's always been with the engine. It's just something I've always enjoyed. And all the guys tell me now, hey, you're getting old, slow down, go to a truck. And I'm like, I think I'd be miserable. I'm going to stay where I'm at.
Yeah. So when you say when you got assigned to truck one out of the academy, do they place you to a
They used
company?
to, yeah. They used to
Or
place you for 3 years. You were with that company for
okay.
3 years. So now it's
Okay.
much different. Now they're rotating them all over the place and doing
Yeah.
all kinds of things. But when I got on back in '93 in Columbus, that's how they started. You went to that company. You were with that company for 3 years, and then
Yeah.
and then you either got force filled to a vacancy or you bid on a spot that was open.
Yeah. Interesting. It's always interesting to hear how other departments do it. Everybody does it a little different. So you spent your 3 years there at Truck One, and then so you jumped to an engine as soon as you had the
I
opportunity. Was
actually
that
I actually got forced to an ambulance for a year,
okay?
Squad 23, which was, nobody likes that, but again, I learned a ton. I learned a lot. I was on the east side of Columbus. I wasn't downtown. I wasn't anywhere where I'd ever worked, so I learned a lot about the east side that year. And then I called Bob Cloud, who legend in our job, and I said, "Hey, I see you got a spot on Engine Two. I'd like to come home." And I went to Engine Two, stayed down there, and till what year was it? 2001, I think. And I got promoted lieutenant off Engine Two. Um, had a chance to ride the heavy rescue sun down there as well. Really big house, so I got detailed over to the rescue sun, which was nice just to get exposure to it. I learned a lot in that spot. And then from there, I floated for a while. Ran our fire academy, ran our division operations portion of our fire academy for 3 years, had enough of that. And then I bid Engine 18, and I've been at 18 ever since.
Yeah. That's been several years, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've been
Yeah.
there since 2011, 12, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's good. Good for you. It sounds like a pretty busy career. So,
yeah, it's,
so you,
I'd like, I can't, I don't, I think I'd be miserable if I went to a really slow house. I, I've been busy my whole career, and I don't think I know what to do with myself.
yeah. So it's engine 18. Is it housed with another company, or is that a single engine
Single
company?
engine, single engine. Now there's 5 pieces there. We have 2 ambulances there. We have an
Mhm.
EMS supervisor there, and then we also have the rescue supervisor for the whole city. Runs out of that firehouse as well. So he's for the technical rescue stuff. He's oversees all of the heavy rescues, the 5 heavy rescues in the city.
All right. Interesting. So how big is Columbus? How many stations you got? And
Columbus right now, we are 34 stations. They're building station 36. We have 1 and 9 is combined now. That happened way
mm,
before I even got on the job, but they got another firehouse. They're building another one, which will give us 35. We're right at 1,600 guys, 1,700, something like that now.
mm,
Million people. It's
yeah,
growing exponentially. The city's really, really growing fast. They said we need an additional 5 firehouses right now. They did a
yeah,
matrix report, and they said we're just behind, but you know how that goes. It's not a crisis till it's a crisis. So
yeah,
it's not a priority to somebody else. It's not a priority.
yeah. No, I understand. So you've been most of your career in an engine, and what who were some of the people you said you called? What was the officer's name on engine two that you
Oh,
called?
Bobby Cloud, yeah, Lieutenant Bob
Yeah.
Cloud,
So
unbelievable,
yes.
just a true legend. He was a really big part of my career. Um, he kind of set the tone for my career that mediocrity was not okay. And you were only as good as your last fire. If you didn't perform, there was consequences to that, and he lived by that. And I've taken that to heart. That look, we get paid a nice wage. You're a professional. You're expected to produce at a high level, and I just kind of, as a boss, live by that. But at the same time, when we say that, you have to give the folks that work with you the tools to succeed. You can't just say, this is my I think that's the biggest cop out in a lot of the leadership stuff that's out there is, well, you gave them your expectations, move on with progressive discipline. Well, I could give you a piece of paper. That really doesn't mean anything to me. Did I take the time as a boss to sit down with you one on one and ensure you could do every one of these things on the list and you could do it to a high level to the expectation that not only I have, but we have as a company? Because you're setting them up for failure. And all it is just an excuse and a cop out to hand somebody a piece of paper and say, well, they have my expectations. Well, you didn't do your job as a boss. And when we do that, we're building trust amongst the company. When we're doing these tasks together, they see that I can do it. I see they can do it. And I can see the young guy that's coming into the company can do what? They see that we're not blowing smoke. We're serious. Like, we're all going to be able to perform to this level. Just because you're not there right now doesn't mean we can't get you there, but it's going to take work from you. We'll get you there if you want to be there, but you got to instigate it. You got to put the work in to get to there.
Yeah, that says a lot. It's important. This isn't a leadership podcast, but I always like it when people, bring up the fact that you're leading by example, right? You're showing that you can do the do.
But it's not only
And
that, but I think trust is the biggest thing. It's trust. Like, you have to trust each other. One of the first things I have young guys do when they come in, gals do when they come in the firehouse, you're going to make an equipment list. I need you to take everything out of one compartment at a time, clean it, clean the compartment, write down, make a new equipment list. Yes, they need to know where everything is on the truck. Yes, it needs clean. I'm good with all that. But it's more than that to me. Because I look at that equipment list. Did they take time to type it? I go behind them and look. How well did they clean the equipment? What I'm looking for is not that they know how to clean a compartment. Did they take enough pride in doing it? Did they do it the right way? Because if I can't trust them to do a menial task like that, what kind of trust am I going to have for them on the fire ground? What kind of how much leeway can I give them on the fire ground when they half-ass cleaning a compartment, right? Like, so to me, I start that feeling out process with a new person right then, just by something that they have to do anyway, which is learn where everything is. But at the same time, I'm starting that feeling out process. How much can I trust this guy? Is this guy going to be where I need him to be? Is he doing the right things without being pushed? Those are the things I start to look at right from the get-go.
yeah, how did you? Or at what point in your career did you decide that you were ready? You wanted to promote, and why did you want to promote? Why am I not talking to Steve Robertson, 32-year firefighter?
I think a lot of it was I had when Bob Cloud retired, we had a couple people float through and a couple people working overtime, and we had a couple fatal fires that didn't go well, and a lot of it, in my opinion, was some of the folks we were working with, and the guy leading the sitting in the right front seat was not making any decision, and we found ourselves making some decisions from the back seat, and I got pretty upset with that. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of taking orders from people that aren't into the job or don't care. It's time. And I just put up everything I had into it, studied, took one test, and got promoted. So um, I've been a lieutenant now, 23, 24 years. So that either makes me the smartest guy in the job or the dumbest. Probably the dumbest.
Yeah,
Never getting promoted any higher. So probably the dumbest.
yeah. Not necessarily. You're probably the smartest. Uh, so as an engine company officer, we talked about checking the compartments and cleaning the compartments, and that's one of those nuggets that people can walk away with as far as, can I trust you to, if I can't trust you to do a menial task, how can I trust you to do the more important stuff on the fire ground, those sorts of things. But uh, as far as how you lead your engine company, say it's not a new person, it's somebody that you've had for a year or two, and what are the kind of things that you're doing with them to make sure that when you pull up in front of that building that's on fire or that apartment that's on fire, whatever it is, what are some of the things that you have conversations with them about ahead of time, as far as who's doing what? Hey, we're going to do, if we see this, we're going to do this. If we see this, we're going to lay out that. you know, talk about some of the conversations you have with your crews from an engine company, angle.
For me, it's a system. Um, a bad system will beat a good person every day, and I truly believe that. A bad system will beat a good person, but to me, it all starts, and I break it down in my program. It's the 5 keys to a winning engine. Everything we do as an engine company on a fire can relate back to these 5 things. And then you take those 5 things and you break those down. And there's not a situation that we can't apply these 5 things to, that if you can excel at these 5 things, you're going to win an awful lot as an engine company. The first one is position the engine correctly the first time. You get one shot to position the first engine, right? We have this stigma in the United States Fire Service where we think we have to line the cross sleigh up with the front door every time, right? 10-foot setback, 200-foot stretch, 200-foot pre-connect, but that thing has to be dead center to the front door. And I ask them all the same question, and everybody has the same answer. When you estimate the stretch, when you choose the proper size and length of the first line, which is number 2 in my list, choosing the proper size and length, and I only need 130 feet for this house, for the entire house, what do you do with the other 70 feet? And where does it end up? And now you pull a backup line, and that ends up on top of the attack line. And then things just go dead sideways from there. If we pull past the structure, if you estimate the stretch, and we eat up the excess hose we don't need by pulling past the house, guess what happens? You're going to be a lot more efficient stretching lines because you're not having to deal with excess hose you do not need. And you're leaving the front for the truck.
Yeah.
On top of that, it's a win-win for everybody when we do that. So position the apparatus, select the proper size and length, estimate the stretch. 100 ways to do it. I've got my own method to do it. We can go into that sometime, but without pictures and me drawing things, it makes it a little more challenging to follow. But and number 3, select the proper point of entry. Usually it's the front door. You're in Indianapolis, I'm in Columbus. We have basements. If I get a basement job and I got a side door, guess where I'm going? That's a straight shot. You know what I mean? Like, those are the types of things that experience guides you to that, man, if I could get that side door and get a straight 50 foot down that basement off that side door, that's going to be a win for us. Stretch better than good is number 4. Good is not good enough. We have to be better than good. We are an engine company. Our primary job is to put hose on the ground in a timely manner, right? And the last thing is be able to move and flow the line effectively. So when you look at what I talk about when we were just talking, what do I teach my guys? What's my training? Everything falls into those 5 things. Everything we do falls into those 5 things. Now, I may take those 5 things and throw it to a mid-rise building, right? But does positioning still matter? All of those things still apply wholeheartedly. So when we learn the basics of the system, all we have to do is apply those 5 things to the situation in front of you. The system doesn't change. How we apply those 5 things may change, simply changes based on the system that's in front of you, because the goals of those 5 things are exactly the same every time.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's awesome. Is that something? Well, let me back up. So you said in your introduction when we were talking about Columbus, you said that you can run with 3 firefighters, right? So
Mm-hmm.
is that every day 3, or is it 4 unless
3 till
somebody's off?
2000. It can be 3 till 2000, and then it has to be 4 on everything. They'll
Okay.
go light daylight, and then it's 4 on everything at night. And I think a
Okay.
lot of that's just, this guy's in EMT school, this guy's in this training, this guy's doing this. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Everybody's going 100 directions, so
Yeah.
saves them
Okay.
some overtime probably.
Yeah. 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 More than likely. Yeah. So how does that affect you as far as the way you do things if you're running a 3 uh, person engine, say during the day, and you catch work
I'm glad you
compared to
brought
the
it up.
evening?
My driver works. My driver works. We run a 200-foot off the rear. It's in a 100-foot bundle. My nozzleman takes the bundle. My driver takes the bottom. They take the static bed of 100. They're stretching that bottom 100 every single time. And I've had guys say, well, my driver doesn't want to do that. Well, I didn't ask them if they want to. It's not a democracy. This isn't a democracy. I'll listen to your opinion, but at the end of the day, we're going to do it my way. Like that's just the way it has to be sometimes, right? I don't like being that guy, but sometimes people get salty and they think they want to. No, that's not. I'm not asking you if you want to. But when we have my driver work, he has to clear the hose bed anyway, right? He has to clear the bed. So why not let him? We put our loop on our bottom 100 right after the coupling. Why? It's the least amount of steps to clear the bed. Everything we do is time-based. We try to cut time on everything. My goal at Engine 18 is to be through the door in under 1 minute from the time we hit the air brake. That's our goal. Do we meet it every time? No. But do we a lot of times? Sure. Yeah, we do. And we break that down. 20 seconds to get dressed, 20 seconds to stretch the line and get water in it, and 20 seconds to force the door. When you break it down and you work on those skills individually, it's very doable. So my driver works. That helps a lot. My driver knows that's his responsibility, that bottom 100, and he's going to work. We're going to have you work.
So you said 200? Is that all the only length of pre-connect you carry, or do you carry
No. We carry a 200 foot inch and 3/4. It's on a 100-foot bundle. Right beside it, and it's in a single stack. Right beside it, we have a 250-foot pre-connect single stack. It's in a 100-foot bundle as well, inch and 3/4. I have a 200-foot 2-inch pre-connected with an inch and a 16th tip. That's in a 100-foot bundle as well. And then on the back, on the other side, I've got a ram pre-connected at 100 feet off the tailboard. And then I have a 400-foot static of 2.5 underneath that.
Okay. So you're not running 2.5s at all, just 2-inch and inch
There is.
3/4?
I have one 2.5 that's 300 foot on a crosslay.
Okay.
And for us, we have a lot of warehouses and manufacturing in one part of my district. That's basically a trunk line for me to get my line where I need it to go. And then we'll extend off that. A lot of times we'll take the ram in on those runs, and I'll take a 200 or 100-foot bundle of 2-inch and then just extend off the ram. I'm not a fan of taking 2.5 inside dwellings at all, especially when we're short-staffed. I had this discussion with a lot of folks. Well, it's not hard. It's not this. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying I don't like to do it when you're short-staffed. And just look at the water weight numbers, okay? If you look at the water weight numbers, 266 pounds of water weight in a 200 feet of 2-inch line. 200 feet of 2-inch weighs 266 pounds just in water. 2.5 is 434 pounds at 200 feet. All right. That's 168 pounds lighter. Inch and a 16th tip on the 2-inch, 240 gallons a minute. Okay. 87 pounds nozzle reaction. 2.5, inch and an eighth, 265. I'm only losing 25 gallons a minute, but I'm losing 168 pounds water weight and 11 pounds nozzle reaction with 2 people on the line. Which are you going to maneuver better? Yeah. Which are you going to leave open longer? Mm-hmm. The 2.5 doesn't do you any good if it's not all the way open. And most of the time, we try to pump it like inch and 3/4. We over pump the crap out of it. And then we end up doing what? Half throttling it. So now I'm getting inch and 3/4 water dragging around 2.5-inch water weight. So that's kind of a thing to me. So I'm not a fan. If I'm taking a 2.5 somewhere, it's an outside line or it's a trunk line to get water somewhere else for me.
Okay. Well, I was kind of beating around the bush there. I was wondering if for high rise and mid rise standpipe operations, what hand line you use, but you would normally use the 2-inch, right? So
for high rise, yeah. Mid rise, I'm using inch and 3/4 the majority of the time on mid rise. I'm not going to use the standpipe on mid rise. Majority of the time, up to 7 stories, I'm not using it. And
Okay.
and the main reason is, and this is a rabbit hole to go down forever, but the 13R systems, you know, I'm going to caveat here for a second, Eric, but I don't know of a firefighter except one or two. Kyle Smith, if you're watching, you're one of them. God love you. He's my codes guy, right? But how many guys really want to get in to know fire suppression systems that are line guys? Not many.
Yeah, not very many.
Not many want to sit
No.
down and figure out what a fire pump is or where any of that stuff is. Nobody wants to figure that out, right? But it's so vital to know when you start looking at these new mid-rise buildings, because there's a thing called 13R. It's 13 residential sprinklers. And just a quick highlight of just give you a couple examples. Depending on the square footage, it may not have a fire pump. It'll have standpipes. It'll have an FDC. It looks just like everything else, and it's off domestic water. You won't know that. You're going to hook to that standpipe thinking a fire pump's running, and unless you're hooked to the FDC, you're going to get domestic water pressure. That's it. Your sprinklers, the voids are not sprinklered. The bathrooms aren't sprinklered. The closets aren't sprinklered. The sprinklers themselves produce half the volume of a normal 13 sprinkler. They only produce 0.05 gallons per square foot versus 0.10. So these things are designed as escape. They're not designed for suppression. They're designed for the residents to escape. And that's why I think you see the United States Fire Service struggling with these things, is everybody's treating them like high-rise fires, and they're not. They've got 300, 400-foot hallways. How many people are bringing 300 feet of high-rise hose to the fire floor? They're not. And then they're short. And then what? Guess what? Hey, Eric, run back to the rig and get some more hose. Well, you're not running from the front porch. You're running down 5 stories to the truck to get more hose. That's reflex time. And now I'm going to tell you, let's extend off the end of the nozzle. Let's go ahead and extend off the end of the nozzle. Have you done that in a dirty hallway? In a dirty 3 or 4 foot hallway? It's not easy. Yeah. It sounds good, but it's not real easy unless you drill on it, right? So these are the challenges. We try to treat it like something that's the last 10 years, 12 years, I'm guessing, and folks have finally started to take high-rise firefighting serious. They're learning about pressure-reducing valves, and guys like Dave McGrail, Chief McGrail, all these guys, Ray McCormack, Bill Guston's been preaching it forever. Those guys really, truly have made a difference in the United States Fire Service about taking high-rise seriously. Kurt Isaacson with this HROC conference down there, phenomenal. The amount of people that have been trained down there. Brent Brooks, Chief Jerry Tracy. Man, you could just go on and on and on with these guys. Jimmy Davis out of Chicago. But long story short, where I'm going with that is we can't treat a mid-rise building like a high-rise because the system is completely different. It's a completely different system. It's a completely different fire. And I think the other thing that gets us in trouble, you hear guys say, I'm really not worried about that building. It's sprinklered. I'm not worried about that building. It's sprinklered. Well, you better worry about that building because that sprinkler is not designed to put the fire out. And you're going to see they're everywhere. These things are going up everywhere. And this is the new affordable housing model, right? A 400-foot hallway, 5 stories, 6 stories. You get into the nicer areas, it's 1 or 2 of commercial with 2 or 3 or 3 to 4 over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Podium on the bottom, platform on the top. Like, it's a thing. And it's not going away because they realized how cheap they are to build, number one. And number 2, the amount of people they can throw in there. Number 3, how long it takes to build them. It doesn't take that long.
No, they're going up everywhere here in Indianapolis, and I'm sure they are.
We've got over 300, like 340 or something scheduled to be built here in Columbus this year. So, yeah, it's big. It's definitely going to be a problem. Definitely.
So you've already mentioned some things about the sprinklers and the lack of fire pumps and the long stretches in the hallways. How do you, when you're talking to people about approaching these things, what are some things that you're telling them training when you do the Midrise mayhem. Um, you know, just kind of lay it out.
I
What's
think,
your thought process?
yeah,
Let's just say you
I,
pull up to a five-story apartment building. Um, the typical layout, like you just said, platform on the bottom, one floor platform, floors of um, regular framed out building, and then um, with residential. So just kind of lay that out.
yeah, and again, you heard me talk about it before. It's a system. I take
Yeah,
the same system that I just talked about with dwellings, right? Where do we park the truck? Well, that's going to be based on the location of the fire and the recon, right? Estimate the stretch. Well, a lot of this stuff can happen and should happen before. So something I just sent to our fire prevention, and I hope they adopt it, especially with the amount going up. I made it just a little sheet, and it's like 5 or 6 questions that when all of this stuff is sitting in plans review, that's when we should be doing some of this recon. Where are the exits located? Stairwell exits. Can or can it not take a well hole stretch? What is the hallway length to the middle of the building? From the well to the middle, right? Is there a fire pump? Yes or no? All of these things that if we can ask these questions when the plans are right in front of you, the folks down there have to make a brand new card anyway. They have to make a new ticket for the address. This is all information that can be put under remarks on your CAD system. You eliminate a lot of the guesswork and the unknowns if you have that information going into the game. For us, my company, I told you I use 2 100-foot bundles. Every stretch we do is based off the same bundle. Every one we do. So in this case, let's say I've got a 400-foot hallway. I need 200 feet on the fire floor. We're going to stretch, if we can position the rig close enough to the stairwell, we're going to stretch our pre-connect off the rear, well hole stretch right up the middle, and I'm going to bring a second 100-foot bundle. We're going to connect those bundles, and we're going to go to work. You see what I'm saying? It's the same system. The stretches are
yeah,
exactly the same, but all we do is adapt the system of deployment, make it bigger, make it smaller based on what's in front of you. What do we need? Can we add another 100 foot? Sure, you can, right?
mm-hmm.
It's a matter of understanding the system. So, going all the way back to those 5 things, again, we take those 5 aspects and we plug it right into the situation and we work through the problem. But to me, getting out and getting in the buildings, another thing that I carry, I have in the rig, it's a little $30, $40 Amazon laser measure. So we run
Yeah,
to the Ohio State University some. Okay, that's west of us, west of the freeway, but we get over there. If I'm over there, they're wiping some kid's nose. I take that laser measure with me, and I'll be at the elevator lobby in the middle of the building, shooting back to the stairwell. And what am I looking at? How far is that? I need
yeah,
3 links. I need 3 links from the door to get to the middle, right? And if you're only
yeah,
bringing 150 feet of high-rise hose and you're hooking the floor below, you're short. So
yeah,
those are the things that you can do constantly. Take the stairs down instead of taking the elevator down, walk down the stairs. Can a well hole take a well hole stretch? Where does that stairwell exit? Can we get close to it to be able to well hole stretch? All of these things matter. The biggest thing I would say is get in the buildings, number 1, and number 2 is recon the buildings. Learn the system and recon the buildings. Because if you got to have options, you just got to have plan A is never going to go 100%. It just doesn't. As much as you do plan A, if you got a plan A, that's great. You better have a plan B and C. When you put B into play, you better be thinking about C because these things are so dynamic. Jimmy Davis was talking to me about one he had. He physically got lost walking around in it because it was so cut up in different ways and different wings. He goes, there was no rhyme or reason to any of it. So they make them very, very challenging for us, definitely.
yeah, yeah. And like you said, they're not meant to. They're disposable buildings, right? So they're not.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
not.
they're,
They literally, they tell you that that is designed, the 13R is designed for escape. It's not designed for
yeah.
suppression.
So you said that you're stretching from the street. You're not coming off the standpipe. Is that simply because you don't want to have to deal with hooking up to the finding the
I
standpipe
don't
connection and
trust,
all
I
that? Or
don't
you just
trust their system. I do
okay?
not trust their system. The system I trust is the one I'm building and the one we ran this morning when we checked the rig. My
Yeah.
system works. I do not trust their system. Columbus, they had one unit had a rooftop fire on a brand new Hilton, 2 years old, the other day. Go to charge the standpipe on the rooftop. A glove. There was a worker's glove stuck in the valve, and they couldn't get water. So plan A, not much of a fire, not a big deal. Roof deck fire, and no big deal. Well, now you got no water, and the actual standpipe is 300 feet the other direction on the floor below. Now you got a problem, right? So something that simple, having a plan B, doing a coupling drop, whatever you're going to do. And I have guys all the time. Well, we'll just hook to the ladder. They're not going to give you a ladder. No chief worth their weight in salt is going to give you a ladder on an occupied building to use as a waterway. Not on an occupied building. It's just not going to happen. Not going to happen. Because we don't have very many 50-foot banger ladders anymore, do we? I know
No.
we took all ours off. So,
Yeah.
they're not going to tie that aerial up for a waterway.
So you mentioned coupling drop, and that reminded me of a couple fires that I've had in the last few years where we did just that. We dropped the coupling down,
Yep.
from the floor below. Is that something that you guys typically would do, or is that kind of
Yeah,
your
no.
plan
So
B or E? Or
if I can't do, and again, to me, it's a system. It's part of the flow chart. Does it have a well hole or not? It doesn't. Okay. Well, I'm going to do a coupling drop from the floor below in the apartment closest to the attack stairwell. But a common mistake, Eric, that's made here is we'll take two bundles up and we start throwing hose out the window. You don't want to do that. There's two separate things here you have to look at. You have a working length, which the working length is the length of hose we need from the door on the fire floor to the fire apartment. That's the working length of hose we have to get there. And then you have the travel length. What do we need to get from the ground to hook into that working length? You have to take your travel length with you. Don't ever take from working length to make travel length because you'll be short. So that's another one of those things that you got to remember, like, hey, don't take working length to make travel. If it's a 4-story building, you're on 4, right? Let's say you're going to the 4th story. 10 foot per floor, what am I going to need to drop? I'm going to need one length to drop, and I'm going to need a length to get from the apartment to the 5th floor. You see what I'm saying? Like, take that with you, because if you didn't, you're taking 100 foot of your 200 away for travel, and you really haven't saved yourself any time.
No, no. Good point. So, what else about the mid-rise fires have you either in your research or you've experienced firsthand? What are some of the challenges or things that you think it's important that people understand when they're
I
responding into
think
these places?
I think the void space fires are going to be the most challenging, and Bill Gustin, Captain Gustin, said it the best. He said, Stevie, these things are horizontal balloon frame construction. It's horizontal balloon frame. When you look at these floor trusses and you look at the length of these floor trusses,
Mm-hmm.
there are very, very few, if any, fire stops in any of them. And you literally have horizontal balloon frame construction. And getting ahead of that in lightweight construction is going to be a very, very big challenge. I spoke to the guys in Jacksonville, Florida that had one. We were down there teaching a program down there back in January. And that's what they said. They said they were chasing fire in the voids every direction. They said you couldn't get ahead of it. So having a plan to do that, I think, is a very big thing, the voids. And I think something else that nobody considers, when we're talking a 3-man engine, yes, you and I, Eric, can get all that hose up there, can't we? We could do that. And we could get the hose down the hallway. 2 of us could get that done for the most part. How are we going to force the door when we get there? Because do you really think we're going to carry a set of irons plus everything else we need hose-wise? That's probably not a realistic expectation. I personally have a Hydra Ram under my seat that I can clip to myself as a boss. Because most of those doors are legit. Most of them are 1-inch solid core doors with 3/4-inch throw deadbolts. You're not mule kicking them. You're not going to mule kick it. And I don't think it's a realistic expectation to count on the truck to be there to force the door for you. By the time they're searching and everything else they've got to do, you're asking a lot. So to me, I always make sure we can try to take care of that ourselves. And for me, that's a Hydra Ram because I'm probably not going to have the hands to carry anything else other than clip it on myself.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. You mentioned the Hydra Ram, but you're not hooking up to the standpipe, so I assume you're not taking any sort of bag up with you with couplings or appliances or anything.
No, but I may grab a rope, right? I may have to do some type of rope stretch. I may grab my little officer's rope. I could do that. I rope stretch is down the list for me simply because I have to pull my working length up, and it usually ends up in a pile right there when you're pulling your working length up. I prefer to take my working length with me in one trip. If I'm going up, I'm taking all my working length with me, and I don't have to worry about it. And if I need to take travel, I'll take it and drop it. So, a rope is probably my Halligan's what I usually take. And then if I got a bundle on top of that, and then a Hydra Ram, you're pretty loaded right there. When you look at the realistic, absolutely. And then you're the guy, if there's only 2 of you, you're the guy tying it off in the well, right? You got to sit your bundle down, tie it off. So it's a lot for 2 people, but it's absolutely doable.
Yeah. When you can't do a well hole stretch, how are you training your folks to flake your lines out? Say you can't go straight up.
Like return well, stairs. Right? I do not. I do everything I could do not to use return stairs. I'll probably do a coupling drop before I do that. And here's why. Your stretch doubles. You double your stretch right off the top, number one. And Ray McCormick said this, and God love him, another one of my huge mentors. You asked about my mentors. Ray is right there. I mean, he's up there. He's taught me so much. But I stay away from those if at all possible. I would personally rather take travel length and do a coupling drop out a window. Because the way he explains it, and I think it's genius, if you grab your top 2 shoelaces and you pull them tight, what gets tight? Just the top 2. Then you got to go down and do what? Pull those tight. Then you got to go up and pull this tight. So you only get about 6 to 8 feet every time you pull that into the center of the well. And then where you got to go? Down. Only to go where? That's all you get done. And you're moving 6 to 8 feet. You're going to be gassed, and B, you're not going anywhere. So I do anything humanly possible. That's like last resort for me is to do return stairs. I just don't do them. I'd rather do a coupling drop. I'll do a rope stretch. I'll do a well hole stretch. I mean, I'll go up over a ladder before I do that. It's just, to me, it's just not. When you're staff limited, it's not good use of the people you got.
Yeah. To go back to a point that you made earlier, you said that on these kinds of fires, you're going to stretch your engine 3/4. Is that something that, if I remember correctly, you would, in one of these apartment buildings, you take 1 3/4? Is that right?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. Now, of course, if I've got a lot more fire than an 1 3/4 fire, I'm not going to take an 1 3/4.
No, yeah.
I've had this discussion, but I've had these discussions with chiefs that they think if it's above 2, it's on. You got to take a 2.5. What are you thinking? Well, hold on.
Yeah.
How big are those apartments? How many square feet are most of those apartments? 800, 600, right? 600, 800 square feet. Big ones, 9. Yeah. So I've got 160 gallons a minute on the back on a 7/8 tip. I can go into a 1,300 square foot ranch, 3/4 involved, and walk out the back door, and there ain't a chief around that's going to have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But now that I'm 3 stories up, now I've got to take a 2.5 into something a half that size or a third of that size. Does that make any sense? To me, the mobility, the least amount of weight, and the ability to keep the nozzle open longer, when we use the reach of our stream and we leave the nozzle open, good things are going to happen. Good things are going to happen. And taking good angles inside fires. That's another good thing. But I don't. If it's one apartment, I have zero problems taking 1 3/4. I don't have a problem with it.
I don't disagree. I like to have those conversations because everybody has different opinions, and it's always good to hear someone such as yourself who's, you know, preaching it and done a lot of research on your own and it has a lot of experience to be able to back
Well,
up what you
I
say.
mean, does the fire change because it's up 3 stories, or is it the same fire that you have on the ground? It's
Yeah.
the same fire. You may have a little wind. You may have that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not telling you take 1 3/4 into every apartment fire. That's not what
Right.
Steve Robertson's saying. I still got to
Yeah.
select the proper size
Mhm.
and length. When I say proper
Yeah.
size, I'm looking at what's in front of me and making an
Mhm.
educated decision based on my training, education, and experience of whether this is 1 3/4 fire or is this a 2 inch fire? Is
Yeah.
it a ram? Is it a ram fire where we have to soften it with the ram? Are we softening the target? Why with the ram? Why we're stretching? I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Those to me are the
Absolutely.
things that, again, though. But if you go back, Eric, is it the same system? The system's still the same, right?
Hmm.
I just plugged in when I hit size and length. Size, okay, I got a hell of a lot more fire than I thought. We're taking the 2 inch
Yeah.
instead of the 1 3/4. I
Sure.
need more gusto here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's marginal. Guys, take the ram, soften that while we're on our way up. Anything wrong with that? No, absolutely not. So
Mhm.
the systems are the same. Just understand that how you apply the system to what's in front of you and adapt it as needed. That's what I mean by that.
Mhm. You've mentioned smoothbore several times. Is that the only nozzle configuration that you're running in Columbus?
No, 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 no,
Smoothbore.
no, no. I plenty of guys run a 160 at 50. Yeah, I'm not opposed to combination nozzles. I think
Okay.
smoothbore you get a little more punch, but
Yeah.
we leave that up to the captain of the engine company. Now he's got just a couple options. We can do a 7/8. You can do a 160 at 50. You can do a 175 at 50, or you can do a 15/16.
Hmm.
So that's your choices. You can do a smoothbore, you can do a combination, but you're going to be at either 160 or 175, 185.
Yeah.
That's where we fall, and it's pretty much up
Okay.
to the captain.
That's how we do it too. But I know some engine companies. You know, the guys that come in the morning and they'll if they're running
Swap it
a
out.
smooth bore, yeah, that's what a lot of that stuff.
I'm not opposed
So
to that.
yeah, well, you were probably taught the same way I was when you came on the job, and it was fog nozzle, fog that fire, kid. You know,
Yeah,
and
no, that's
I,
what we do.
yeah, and I was telling somebody the other day it was if you used to look at smoothbore nozzles and think they every smoothbore nozzle must have been built back in the era of Ben Franklin, right? You know, they and now here we are using them again. It's like what's old is new again, and it all comes around. And so,
If you really get into the science of it, though, there's some legitimacy behind what they're saying as to why. When you start looking
absolutely,
at
yeah.
velocity of water and the
Hmm.
faster the water cuts through the BTUs and hits surfaces, the more it's there that's going to cool the surface. So,
Yeah.
I challenge young firefighters, don't just say do this. Ask the why. Go research the why. Why is that true? Right?
Hmm.
I tell everybody in every program I do, don't take my word for it. Vet it. Take the information I'm giving you. Go out there and vet it yourself. Don't.
Hmm.
You and I've never crawled down a hallway together. Don't
Yeah.
take my word for it. You go try it. Go do it yourself, and then form your own opinion based on what we've talked about. Right?
Hmm.
That's how I see it. But
Yeah, it's
I just
important.
think that when you look at the system and you have a system, my guys are really good at stretching hose because they're making the same stretch every time. The deployment
Yeah,
model at the end is the only thing that changes. So they're
yeah,
pretty damn good at what they do.
yeah. Well, that's good. You don't get that way without practice and drilling and
Yep.
having those conversations ahead of time. That's I tell people all the time. The best thing that you can do, whether you're on an engine or a truck or a rescue company or whatever it is you got to have these conversations long before the bell ever goes off, right? If you have those conversations up front, hey, here's what we're going to do in this situation. Here's what we're going to do in that situation. You're going to do this. You're going to pull that. We're going to lay out this. If we see this, man, having those conversations and kind of pre-planning all that stuff, just that's where you pay off a lot of dividends outside of the drill ground, obviously, and actually doing it.
Absolutely. And I'm also a fan of like, there's days I'm not able to put hose on the ground every day. I wish I could, but we don't.
Yeah,
Actual work and life get in the way of training sometimes, right? But even
yeah,
if we're during the meal or something, we're going to bring up a topic, even if it's on the whiteboard for 10 minutes. I try to get all my training done in the morning. Check the rig. As soon as we're done checking the rig, go get a cup of coffee. Everybody's back 8:45 ish. They're back in the bay at the tailboard. And we try to knock it out right then before we get busy. Do we always get it done? No, we don't. But we try. We try every day. We'll talk about something every day, but do we actually get a drill done every day? No, we don't. We try to. We'll talk about maybe a whiteboard drill, but we're going to do something that
yeah. That's important. That's a good company officer right there, getting something done with their folks every day, even if it's just something little. Um, so, from between the mid-rise mayhem and your other program, stretching for success, are there any other things or points that you would like to make to the audience to say, hey, here's some things I want to get out, um,
I
talk
think,
about, point
I
out?
think the biggest thing, and everybody's like, oh, my guys will never do that, or they'll never change, or they'll never do anything. Take opinion out of, if you're trying to make change, take opinion out of it. And that's the hardest thing. It really, truly is, because if you can take opinion out of it, and I started doing this and I've had a lot more success. I don't say we're going to do this because it's better. I pull out a stopwatch. I pull out the stopwatch. Do it your way. Click, click. Now we're going to do it my way. Which way's faster? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's no longer my opinion now. Go back to the great work those guys at Firefighter Rescue Survey are doing. Use that data. What's it tell us when we arrive when we can make a grab between 2 minutes and 6 minutes time of arrival, like 69 or 71% survival rate? So is it about my opinion or your opinion, or is it what's going to get the line on the fastest and the most direct path on the way to the fire for that
Mm-hmm.
2 to 6 minute time frame? When you put it on the clock, there's not a lot of argument. How do you argue the watch? When you have the data to back you up saying the faster we can get water on the fire, we directly impact survivability, and now that's your family.
Yeah.
The stopwatch is pretty hard to argue. So that's probably one thing, Eric. I quit arguing with people about stuff like that. I go, just time it. Put it
Mm-hmm.
on the watch. Let's see which is faster. Because that takes a lot of the argument away. You have the rescue data survey here. Here's what your triple load. This was your 50-foot Minuteman. Here's your 100-foot bundle. Now take
Yeah.
however you want to get it up there. Take 200 feet to the fifth floor. Go and put water in it.
Mm-hmm.
Which one's fastest? And that's how
Yeah.
you got to approach it. I mean, that's it. It solved a lot of arguments when you put it on the clock. You don't end up in the weeds nearly as much putting it on the stopwatch.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, where else can you've got a lot of programs you do? You're traveling around. what are some things that you want to let the audience know about that you're getting ready to either be at or do?
Yeah,
You
big
know you're
one.
going to be at FDIC.
Big one, and we're really excited. The Midrise Mayhem stuff's myself, Clyde Gordon, Todd Edwards from Atlanta, Clyde Gordon out of Houston. With Jimmy Davis works with us some. We've got several guys that work with us. Kyle Robigus from Engine Company Resurrection works with us. We try to get. We got a very good group of guys, but for the first time, we're doing a hybrid hot at FDIC this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited about that. It's going to be a couple hours of lecture, kind of some show and tell stuff that we're going to show you. Different vertical stretches, basically, is what we're going to do. We're going to show you some line extensions. We're going to show you some coupling drops. We're going to show you some well hole stuff. We're going to show you different things. So we're really excited about that. I think Chief Rhodes with the format of the hybrid hot is really going to take off because, look, not everybody can do 8 hours, right, in the hands-on program, and they want to, but we're really excited for FDIC this year. It's the first year we're doing the hybrid hot. We're going to be involved in the hose program, hoisting, operating, stretching, and extending for the 2 days of actual hot programs. I think there's still some spots available for that. That's another outstanding program. A ton of great instructors: Daryl Liggins, Steve Florian, myself, Todd Edwards. You go right down the line. Brett Brooks from Toronto. Kyle Robigus again from Texas. It's a really good, diverse group of guys. I'm going to be in Orlando Fire Conference end of February in a couple of weeks, Harrisburg next week. And then we're in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. We've got Spartanburg, South Carolina is coming up. That's going to be a big one. We're in, it all starts running together after May.
Yeah.
Spartanburg, I don't remember the rest of them. Oh, it's the big one, another FDIC legacy. Jimmy Ellis, the Jimmy Ellis Memorial. It's in August. The Pittsburgh area, another great conference. Doing it for the right reason, in memory of my friend Jimmy Ellis. So that's another one to look for us at.
Yeah. Busy man.
Yes, sir.
Columbus
Yes, sir.
Division of Fire.
Blessed to do it.
And in between all that, you managed to find time to go to the firehouse.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. All right. Well, I really appreciate it, Steve. It's been a good conversation, and as I said early on, I'm not an engine guy. I was I'm more of a truck guy, so um, I can find my way around an engine, but I don't know it near as well as you do. Nor do many firemen, in my opinion. But I just want to thank you for being my guest this month, and I look forward to seeing you at FDIC. Hopefully, we'll cross paths, and I'll see you at Great Lakes Hot. More than likely, is coming up in June.
June, I forgot
And
about that one.
yeah, and maybe we'll cross paths somewhere else. But and while I'm at it, I want to plug my hot class, the Vent Inner Search class that we do at FDIC every year. And as Steve mentioned, these classes are going to sell out. I think they sold out, or were like 98% sold out last year. They're going to sell out again. This we're at the end of February when this episode comes out, so you basically only have about a month to get registered. And if you wait till the last minute, you're going to miss out. So, get registered for the hybrid hots or for the actual hands-on classes. So with that being said, I'll just say thanks everybody for tuning in this month. I'm Eric Dreiman on behalf of Chief Dave Rhodes and Diane Rothschild and the Fire Engineering Network. Thanks for watching the Hooks and Hoses podcast, and we'll see you again in March. Take care.